One of the biggest issues in the race for South Carolina House District 110 is flooding. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down one-on-one with Democratic candidate Ben Pogue. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. And listen to this interview later on iHeartRadio. Ben Pogue, it's so good to see you again.
Good to see you, as always, Quintin.
I appreciate it greatly. You know, as we sit here right now, I know that's probably maybe 3 weeks out before the election.
Yeah, wow.
What is it like to be you, candidate Ben Pogue?
I'm just me. You know, I'm no different than any other time in my life, really. You know, it's so Nina and I, we still get up early in the morning and get as much done as we can, get a workout in, and then head to work. The hours are a little bit longer, so usually, you know, it's up at 5 and then 7 a.m. we're down to work, and then usually bedtime doesn't come around till about 11 o'clock, but it's great. We don't get a chance to keep up with our kids. They're all out of the house as much, and I joke that I see my parents and my mother-in-law at campaign events rather than getting together for dinner usually, which is what we do. But, you know, it's great work, and I love being out there and meeting folks, which is fantastic. And I think that, you know, it feels good. This is my first time ever in politics, but it feels good in our community when we can bring people together, especially from opposite political spectrums, and get them in the same place and get them being able to talk to one another again. You know, that's a really great thing.
And you talk about bringing people together. Let me take you to downtown Charleston.
Yeah.
I know last week you actually joined in with a fundraiser for the establishment, you know, at the cigar factory. And community leaders and individuals from downtown Charleston and Mount Pleasant were just bringing people together. And you said, hey, people over politics.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that's really what it's all about. That's what our campaign has been about from the beginning. We didn't want to just, I say we because this is a family decision, you know, for Nina and I. We didn't want to run just to put somebody in there in the State House, just to have me be elected. That wasn't really what it was about. We wanted the campaign to do something. It's not just to be about winning, but to be about bringing our community together. We've got folks in our neighborhood over in Hopcaw Creek Plantation, just like folks all over Mount Pleasant, all over downtown, who really for the past couple of years haven't talked to one another. And it's like we forgot that we're neighbors first. That's what we really want to have people focus on. We're neighbors first. You know, we trust each other with our kids. We trust each other to care about what we're doing on the same street that we live in, and care about some of those issues that affect everybody, which is really why flooding is such a huge part, and always has been for our campaign, not just downtown, but in Mount Pleasant, because it's something that affects everybody, our entire community. Even in Mount Pleasant, where you've got an area that's much more elevated than downtown, there are still real significant issues over there. Mount Pleasant is working on them and has the ability to do things. They're working on several drainage projects to leap forward a little bit more before it gets to be a really dire situation like it is downtown. We have got an absolutely urgent, immediate, dire situation downtown that we need attention to immediately.
Matter of fact, you wrote the Postal Courier and you basically had this editorial. You basically said, hey, we need immediate solutions to flooding. What are those solutions right now?
The biggest one, well, really there were two that we mentioned in the op-ed. The first is, let's look at what the most critical area of need is and potential risk is, and that's the battery.
Okay.
So let's see what we can do there. That's why we came up with a $25 head tax, which can raise money over the next several years to reconstruct and build a higher battery seawall for the lower battery. That's critical just because that's the place that if we had a Category 3, Category 4 storm, would just get hit the hardest. So let's address that immediately. In the meantime, even while that's being constructed, we would have enough money with the head tax to build a temporary wall down at the battery, which would protect us at least much more than we're being protected now. So that was really part one of it. But the second part, which is a greater part, is we need to have a statewide Office of Floodplain Management. And I noticed that the legislative contingent from the Low Country put out a statement that they're really interested in flooding, which is great. Flooding has been an issue for years, though, And it's not enough to suddenly start prioritizing it right now. We need to have a way to deal with it. And I think the way to deal with it is this statewide Office of Floodplain Management. That would allow us to have our entire state buy into the problem. And I did a presentation to Charleston Resilience Network earlier this year about how getting things done isn't just coming up with a solution and then saying everybody needs to do this. It's not just about asking for money. You really have to have part of the solution be the way for other people to agree with it, the way for us to all get on board. So an Office of Floodplain Management is a way to have statewide buy-in to a deal, because folks in Kershaw County have real significant flooding problems, as we've seen. Folks over in the PD, real significant flooding problems and life-threatening flooding problems over there. So folks all over the state want relief from flooding. It's a huge issue, and it's becoming more and more of an issue every single year. But unless we have a mechanism for the entire state to buy in and see where they can get the benefits, then it's never going to happen. It's going to be the same old scenario which some of our legislators down here complain about, which is they go and they say, we want more, we deserve more, but they don't have a reason for everybody else to agree with them. As a mediator, I mean, this is what I do, is get people to come to solutions so that they can both see their benefit moving forward. That's how you get deals done. So it's not just coming up with our solution, it's coming with a solution, up with a solution, but me making sure that you understand how that directly benefits you. Not just in that I want to make more money, and if I don't make more money, we'll all be underwater. You know, I get that. It's nice to ask for the money, but unless you have a real reason to get on board and to see a direct benefit from it, then the whole deal doesn't get done. An Office of Floodplain Management that prioritizes flooding across the state, that provides a hub for communications for all these different entities which cannot communicate right now, and which gives everybody a reason to benefit. I think that that's the way to go.
And when you talk about flooding, you also talk about infrastructure.
Yeah.
Where are we with this discussion in the future in your mind?
Well, floodplain management, this is part of the reason it's an Office of Floodplain Management. Our floodplain management is part of our infrastructure. We've got agricultural needs across the state. It's not just, hey, what do we do when it floods? So infrastructure can be drains, infrastructure is roads and bridges, which we see in the PD can be washed out by a storm, even if they're miles and miles away from the coast. Infrastructure, the way we handle it now is we're all sort of asking for our money, but at least we have a way of communicating and saying, all right, we have a need here, and if there's a critical need, like when the Mark Clark failed, you can at least address that and you have a mechanism in place. Right now we don't have that for floodplain management. That's why that's so important. But we need more infrastructure dollars all around the state. We're making leaps forward in some areas. Some areas of our economy are looking good, but we need to preserve our character of our towns and quality of life, to reduce traffic by making sure that our infrastructure is fortified. And it's not just drainage projects, it's road projects, and making sure that some roads are widened, some roads, if they can't be widened, if they're going to impact the community too much, we need to make those kind of decisions too. They're hard decisions.
And going back to the Office of, I believe,
Office of Floodplain Management.
Floodplain Management.
The OFM.
Oh, there you go. How much would that cost taxpayers in your mind?
Not really much.
Okay.
You could have a 12-person department, so $1 million to fund an entire department. That the reason that you can do it that cheaply is because chiefly it's acting as a hub for communications. So it's not necessarily that they're grabbing money from other places, it's that the communication is going through there. And I've heard this over and over again with the answer to what are the big problems in getting flood projects done. It's communication. It's stormwater in Charleston County that can't talk to officials over in Berkeley County. The water doesn't care about county lines. We need all those departments, whether it's drainage, stormwater, Department of Natural Resources, Office of Coastal Resource Management, and you name it. They all need to speak to one another. So when the number one thing that that office does is act as a hub of communication, then you don't need a whole ton of money brought in for them to deal with. You can just fund those folks moving forward. Another great thing about this is we've got people already in place in other parts of the state who are not fully utilized, who if we repurpose them, put them in the Office of Floodplain Management, and they're already certified floodplain managers, then we can take the cost from somewhere else and put it into the OFM, and it really doesn't have that much of an impact on taxpayer money. And the amount that it could save, Quintin, is amazing. Over the last 13 years, I think it is, if you just took downtown Charleston and Mount Pleasant, how much have we lost for flooding? On average, over the last 13 years, it's about $100 million a year. So funding an office that acts primarily as a hub for communications, uses data-driven science to determine where the needs are, not going to cost that much. It's a huge win for the entire state.
And obviously the Low Country, the legislative delegation that is, will be meeting at the North Charleston City Hall tonight to talk about the flooding, and they actually have formed a task force.
Right.
What exactly do you want to hear from them?
I want to hear more than it's a priority. We need to start having, number one, we need to have a mechanism for us to get that money, and we need to know what we're going to do with it. Now, I understand that it's great that the legislative task force is working. I haven't seen those legislators at Charleston Resilience Network meetings and presentations all throughout the year, so I'm not sure what their base of knowledge is, and I'm not sure how much they really communicated with our area floodplain managers, with the ecologists. We've got great resources down here at the College of Charleston. Folks that are dying to talk to legislators about what the problems are and what the fixes could be. So I don't know what work they've done there, and I don't know what we're going to get out of it. That's what I would like to see, more than just some prioritization, and to have a plan for us to get the money in and find our way to implementing those solutions.
And obviously you've been in the communication business for a long time.
Yeah.
When it comes to flooding in South Carolina, where's that lack of communications?
Well, we talk about this a lot when we're doing broadcast meteorology. It's broadcast meteorology is part forecasting and it's part communicating the risk so that it's appreciated. When it comes to flooding, folks, if they don't see it, if they're not downtown, they don't see it right there in front of them, then a lot of times it's sort of in the back of their mind. Well, we're not dealing with that now. And it's tough to look out to 2040, which is when some of the studies are saying, look, we've got real significant sea level rise by that point, and say, oh, well, we're going to have a problem, let's dump a bunch of money into it right now. So largely, when we talk to folks who are not downtown, where there's an immediate risk and a life-threatening risk, then it's about property loss. It's not, because it's not just, oh, you're going to be flooded out and you can leave. It's about what are we going to lose in terms of our property values. We've already seen them going down in some areas. It's what is this going to mean for our quality of life? What is it going to mean for our kids when we want them to stay there and we look 10 years, 20 years out into the future? If we've got an area that is flooding routinely, then they can't enjoy the life that we have had. So often what moves people is the understanding that if we don't do something, we're all losing. We're losing out on the quality of life, we're losing out on the character of our towns, and we've got a significant loss of potential property value, and in some cases like downtown Charleston, some of Johns Island, James Island, loss of life. That's a real possibility if we get a big storm in here and we're not prepared.
When you talk about quality of life, what is that like right now for your particular district?
I think it's good in some areas of the district sometimes. We talk to a lot of folks who are frustrated. They're frustrated with largely the level of communication that they've got with folks in the State House. Town council meetings and city council meetings are great because anybody can go and you've got your representative right there. But for the State House, when we've had this culture of corruption and this conflict of interest that's been building term after term, and then people are so disconnected from that, they feel like they're forgotten. Well, that adds up to an impact on quality of life as well. We feel like we're taken for granted. We feel like even if we ask for something, if we've got problems down there, we're never really going to get a solution. That impacts the way we feel about our town. That impacts the way we feel about our State House. And I think that it's all really tied together. On good days, Mount Pleasant and downtown Charleston are wonderful places to be. When the king tides come in, downtown Charleston is not a great place to be. when we've got cruise ships coming in that have a huge impact on our area and we're not getting everything out of them, it's hard not to walk down the street and in one breath say, oh, I love this place, and in the next breath say, oh, we could be doing so much more.
And obviously, as I've known you for over 20 plus years, obviously you're an attorney, a mediator, you're a husband. Obviously you are still, I believe, a certified meteorologist. But beyond all of this and being a political candidate, who is Ben Pogue?
Oh my gosh, I don't know, I suppose that's hard to define for anybody. I'm just a guy who's trying to help out.
Okay.
I love learning, so loved learning back when I was doing the weather, loved learning through law school and experiencing things and connecting with people. That's the same person that I've been since, I was a kid, and I love community service. I grew up volunteering. That's what I feel this is sort of just an extension of. And I'm not that much different than anybody else, On our block, if somebody has a tree limb go down in their front yard, then you got 4 neighbors coming on over to help them. If there's somebody who's got a health need, then neighbors come on in. So it's not just me. I'm just a regular guy, like anybody else. I just happen to be doing this. This is my type of community service. And I think it's something we need, and I think we need legislators up there who are committed to connecting to their neighbors, just like you and I connect, or anybody down the street connects, and to really making that a priority in their life. So the things that change as far as who I am are, if I'm elected, well, this becomes job 1. So law becomes job 2, a secondary priority. And frankly, we discussed this with our family, our extended family too, because it would mean that we're all sacrificing, and that my job would need to be a 24/7 job for the community. And that means family comes second in a lot of ways.
What have you learned about District 110 as far as this race that you didn't know 3 or 4 months ago?
Gosh, 3 or 4 months ago, I don't know. I think that when you're knocking on doors, more than anything, in the last 3 or 4 months, we've been knocking on people's doors and connecting with people. And I think that I learned something phenomenal, which is a great part of this process, which is largely when you knock on people's doors, whether they're Republican or Democrat, whatever their walk in life is, they're really wonderful human beings. I was talking to folks over at the College of Charleston a couple weeks ago, I guess it was, and they were saying, oh, you're knocking on Republican doors? Well, yeah, because they're neighbors too. They're good people. So I said, how many doors do you think I've gotten slammed in my face? Oh my gosh, it must be awful. No, it's not. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, if you live in District 110, chances are you're a really nice human being who cares about his or her neighbors. And so I've learned that it doesn't matter whose door you knock on. People are nice, and they're genuine, and they're compassionate, and they're thoughtful, and they're community-minded everywhere. And that has been the greatest thing about getting into politics, is that people are good people. It's just a reassurance of that.
Ben Pogue, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate this.
Thanks, Quintin.
Thank
Always.
you. Likewise.
Take care.
You're welcome.